The upcoming Fantastic Four movie will be a period piece, supposedly set in the 60s. And you know what? I am all for it. In fact, I think this is very, very interesting and indicative of a larger change within entertainment. I believe that this is the various entertainment studios essentially sending out some feelers, touching up with the audience, and trying to get an idea of where they should be heading from here. As we have been shouting loudly now for years that things were better back then. And the studios are listening. As I've said on multiple occasions, it isn't that we are not getting any feedback through, it is that, one, there are people entrenched within these studios who are ideologically committed to not allowing that feedback to actually manifest into anything, and two, because these are enormous companies. It takes them years and years to onboard anything, and even longer to actually react to it, and yet there are some very interesting points here. Now, you might remember very recently, X-Men 97 is a show that I have on multiple occasions lauded. As the title is true, it is as close to a direct continuation of the old school cartoon as it is damn near possible to get. It's a good show, doomed by its own writer and marketing, who elected to try and market a show that doesn't have a whole lot of wokeism in it as a woke property. And in the current year, that was not a particularly good idea, frankly, weirdly enough. There's also the upcoming Superman movie. You know what? This costume does not look bad, and Mr. Terrific too looks spot on. I will say that, you know, the lines in the suit really do not do him any favors whatsoever, but this is much better than the dark and gritty look that he had in the previous promotional shots. And speaking of dark and gritty as well, the Fantastic Four are themselves a bit of a outdated hero group, aren't they? For what we've seen in entertainment around superheroes recently, where everything's gotta be dark, everything's gotta be brooding, everybody's gotta be on the verge of becoming goddamn evil. Even Superman needs to kill someone in his cinematic return in The Man of Steel. And the Fantastic Four are, well, they're an old school superhero group. I mean, one of the core is a man and his wife. That's not very 2024, is it? Oh god, no. And yet they're now trying to apparently return to this. See, again, I do genuinely believe that X-Men 97 was in many ways an attempt to kind of like feel out the audience. I suspect this is as well, and I think this is going to be too, to try and figure out what the audience means when they say the good old days. Now, the problem here is whether or not they actually get the full feedback, because there's another show upcoming as well, Batman the Caped Crusader, which is promising to be a return to old school Batman, and I adore Batman the Animated Series. I'm working on a second video about old school entertainment like that right now because, my god, it is everything we do not have today. Again, I'd like to continue to shill the Nora Freeze video as just unironically an example of how goddamn far we have fallen from the once ideal that we had. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, this is kind of the problem here, right? So, this is Commissioner Gordon, a black police commissioner in apparently the 1940s. Gotham is a very, very progressive city, as it turns out. And immediately, again, you see the problem here. What has the studios actually heard? Have they heard return to the good old days, as in, the old school animation style of X-Men 97? Or have they heard the whole message, as in, no, we'd just rather like you to not have wokeism in your shows? And this does look like wokeism, and of course it gets worse. Now, Batman looks pretty good, honestly. I'd prefer the even older style costume with like the yellow behind the bat, etc., but details. And then there's this. This is Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn in this show will not be the Joker's sidekick. She will, in essence, be the Joker, because, again, this is the problem with the current year, isn't it? You cannot create a new hero, or new villain, more correctly, in this case. You have to simply take somebody else's style, and so Harley Quinn will just basically replace the Joker, which, by the way, is exactly the same that I think is going to happen in the Joker movie, incidentally. But she is now a cold and calculating psychopath supervillain that uses psychology against her enemies. Problem is, that isn't Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn without the Joker doesn't work. She is the very definition of a sidekick. Her entire aesthetics, her style, her personality is based upon the Joker. Having Harley Quinn without the Joker would be like having Kid Robin without Batman. It would be weird. These characters exist to complement other characters, and that is fine. You can even spin these off into their own canons eventually, although I heartily disagree with how they did that with Harley Quinn, but details. As this also is Harley Quinn, so she is an Asian American now, because again, we can't have too many white people in a show like this, but at least Bruce is still Bruce, unusually enough, and I do like the fact that there actually is a Bruce. I think he looks a little bit too good here, because one of the things I really liked about Batman the Animated Series is that Bruce Wayne went out of his way to come out as a little bit dopey. He put on a different, lighter voice than when he was Batman, to make sure that nobody could figure it out. There was even like a scene where his identity is revealed and the dude tells the villains like, Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Two-Face is like, bullshit, I know Bruce Wayne, he ain't Batman. But to address the wider things around here again, so Fantastic Four, 60s style period piece. Okay, now already with the casting, Pedro Pascal as Reed Richard. On the one hand, I see it. In fact, I think he would make for a fantastic Reed Richards. And at the same time, I look at the calendar and the year, and I wonder just a little bit. As if they simply deliver a Fantastic Four movie, I actually suspect it will be received very well. Even better, if it delivers a pro-family message. Oh shit, can you imagine that? A loving wife and husband? Oh boy, that would be very unusual today. A breath of fresh air. Now, on the other hand, if Reed Richards starts slapping Sue out of nowhere, which incidentally was a story plotline of the Fantastic Four, as all of these universes entered into their darker phases, then we're gonna have a problem. As in X-Men 97, what made X-Men 97 good, and 8.9 IMDb rating, very, very good as well, was because it genuinely stayed very faithful to the original, almost too faithful in fact, where you'll get major plot points like the Goblin Queen just appearing on you. And if you are not up to date with the, well, kind of, I guess, if you're not retro enough to have recently watched the old one, you'll be sitting there like, what? That was a massive plot line, because this was actually a big thing back in the day. With many of these older cartoon shows, etc., you would have, and comics as well, you would have massive upsets that were presented as long-term diabolical plans by some villain or another that had cloned a hero like a decade ago and now revealed themselves to be evil. These kind of enormous kekakudori things was a way to introduce a tremendous deal of like, what? Into the show, and it works. X-Men 97 pulls it off very, very well, but again, the marketing, and hey, if they were really clever, if the producers of this were really genius, what they would do was create an old-style show on virtually every level, and then go to the writer and go, hey, it's a very progressive show, isn't it? You should talk about that on your Twitter, and then monitor reaction. Like, okay, people liked the show, they hated the man who was talking about progressivism on Twitter. 1 + 1 = 2. That's the ideal. Because There's going to be a period here where even shows that tries to do the right thing are probably going to be hammered in part if they have a progressive marketing. And the progressive marketing is of course going to be determined largely by the marketing and the HR department, whereas where the wokeism has its deepest claws in the studios, meaning that X-Men 97 appears to have been a financial failure, as far as we can tell from the early numbers, although it was already cleared for a second season, so it's going to be given a second go around to see if it manages to haul back the numbers, and maybe it deserves to, but at the same time, if we have to offer up the occasional sacrificial lamb to hammer home the point that we don't want just good entertainment, or all entertainment more correctly, we want good, wokeist, free entertainment, then so be it. I am more than happy to offer up a lamb or two in that case. As now the studios will be feeling out, slowly but surely, trying to figure out the feedback with test products. And don't freak out if one or two of them fails. Wokeism has been failing for 10 years. And they're still trying it. Again, it takes a very long time for these companies to onboard any of this feedback. But already with the success of Avatar: A Way of Water, which is practically the only Disney success recently, and that being a story about fatherhood and family, and then you've got Final Fantasy, Fantastic Four, there you go. You've got X-Men, you've got Caped Crusader, you've got upcoming Superman. It is very clear, at least to me, that the studios are starting to get the message. Now we just need to lean back and see how large of a percentage of the message has seeped through their thick skulls. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.